Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to tonight's episode of Late Night Q&A with ZodWriter. And keeping with the current tradition of what I've been doing over the last few weeks, I am spotlighting Home Arcade community members, Home Arcade YouTubers, and I am honored tonight to have Glen from Glen's Retro Show on the channel with me tonight. Thank you for being here, Glen. I appreciate you being here, man. I am so excited for what you have in store, for what you're doing here. I'm a big fan of your body of work, and I just was like looking for an opportunity to get in here and actually sit down and have a nice long chat with you about everything, man. So welcome.
I'm glad you added body of work and just didn't say body, because then I would have been concerned. But I really do appreciate you having me on. I mean, I was on not too long ago. We were just talking before the show. Your stream went on for like 3 hours, but it was a fantastic show. You had a lot of people joining the stream, like I said, difference of opinions, but everyone was cordial. Everyone was cordial on the show, which was
people
great.
were passionate, but they were cordial, and they, and what I loved about it was it seemed like we had all gotten to the point at some time in the show where people who disagreed just kind of agreed to disagree.
Yes,
and
didn't
derail the show. It didn't derail the show. So that was nice. There, there were a few rough spots, but ultimately it went.
I'm going to put you
really
as
well.
a Johnny Carson or Jay Leno of shows, because getting those people on and for it not to get out of hand, and it didn't. I mean, it really didn't get out of hand at all. People, like I said, were cordial, and there was a lot of different opinions, a lot of different people on the stream at some points. But I take my hat off to you, because what you kind of did there is a rarity. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's what I try to do. I try to take, it's so funny. I try to take the perspective when I do these kinds of shows as almost like a talk show, because I want to get people the opportunity. Whatever you think, whether I may agree or disagree with you is not the point. I want to get different perspectives.
Right.
And I think people, and I'm glad that it seems like people are starting to understand that and starting to realize that when it comes to me. Because in the beginning, when I was doing this kind of stuff too, I started off doing internet radio, and people, I had this reputation of, they never know what, they never know what I'm going to do or what I'm going to say, or is it going to be, and my whole thing was, people would think, well, is he going to go the route of drama? Is he going to attack this person? And in actuality, no, that's never my intent. I always want to bring somebody on because I want to get to them, and I want to get them to open up and talk about what their truth is and what they're believing and how they're seeing things. And when I get the opportunity to talk to somebody, to somebody like you, who I admire and whose work I appreciate and who I understand what you're trying to do, it's like I look forward to that, because I want to see where you're coming from and what makes you do what you do. And it's just exciting for me. It's just exciting for me, and it should be exciting for everybody in the community too, because I don't know. It just seems like this community, for all the division, is full of love. Like, everybody wants to see things done better, and everybody wants things to, it's like what you're doing, the work that you're doing with the iiRcade. It's revolutionary, because here's the thing: iiRcade is gone now. So to actually want to come and create a way for it to continue, quality of life, so that people don't have a dead husk of an arcade machine, to be able to, continue using it for years to come, and to get new things out of it.
Right.
Thanks to the efforts of you and Mystery Encoder and other people in the community. It's just a wonderful thing. We live in an incredible time, and I think it's a hell of a time to be alive. And it just goes to show that not everything has to be bad, not everything has to be negative, and it's incredible. So
the bad thing is, the bad thing about the bad thing is it's really doesn't have to be bad at all, but people seem to like that part of it and build the drama from it and
Oh yeah,
get
yeah.
exposure from that. And that's the bad part of it because the community, like anything else, there are tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people in the community, but it's only a very small part that really cause and stir the pot, the drama, and so forth. But the squeaky wheel is what generally gets the attention, and that's no different. But there's so many great people in here. Team Encoder and Mystery Encoder doing a really good thing with iiRcade. But there's a lot of smaller people as well. If you go on like Etsy or just a Facebook Marketplace that make enhancements and things. There's like 99 Lives Arcades or Arcade Graphics or Joe Sabos. All these guys are doing all these little things to help the community. Um, the one bad thing I hear from a lot of people, like shipping costs. Now, none of us can do anything about shipping costs. I wish maybe one day I can buy a FedEx. Who knows? Um, but shipping costs, unfortunately, is something that's like out of all our control. 'Cause I see all the time people saying, "I would buy this, but man, the shipping cost to this area is so much money, so much money." There's nothing we can really do about that or duties at certain spots. It sucks. But I know we try to work around that as best we can, but we don't have any control of that. But I'm a little off on a tangent there. Just there are just a lot of people in the community making all these enhancements to make your stuff nicer. Or in
Yeah.
the case of iiRcade, keeping it relevant. That was the biggest thing I was worried about. When the news came down. I mean, I'm hearing rumors. Well, it's not really rumors. There are people who are interested in it. I know a few people said that they were purchased. To my understanding, they have not yet been purchased, but there are people interested in purchasing it. But you don't know what's going to happen when they do. Are they going to continue it along? Are they going to bring the stores back? Are they going to change the whole ecosystem on there? We don't know. And you obviously pay for some things on there already. So the good thing about the team encoder option, first of all, it's inexpensive. It's like $30 roughly, maybe a bit less, a little bit more, depends on what they finalize on. But the beauty is that it will let you back up your machine, which I think is important because if anyone has a computer, even your cell phone, they glitch sometimes for no reason and you do it like a factory reset. And if you do a factory reset in the iiRcade, you're going to lose everything. So they're giving you an option to rescue it and potentially be able to add games that way as well. Um, my solution, I didn't know about Mystery Encoder and and Team Encoder even doing any of that stuff. My concern was, oh my God, they're shutting it down. You have this machine it's beautiful hardware. It's solidly built, good controls on it, and I want to continue that along. And that's where my Viper SBC is coming out. But the Viper SBC is really broader than just iiRcade. It just so happened that we're in the final stages of it, and this kind of happened. So we're gonna try and make. I'm gonna say try make it. We have it working. I just want to make sure it's bulletproof for end users, and we're going to be doing many more things with that SBC. So we have a roadmap. We started with just the little controllers, and now we're doing the build-a-cades, 1/6 scale. We're doing this with iiRcade, and we have other things, other partners that we're trying to work out some deals with to expand the GRS ecosystem further out. And the one thing I've always tried to do, and I hope people agree, as I try and give the highest quality parts as inexpensive as possible. Now, shipping costs, again, I can't do anything about shipping costs. But I think if you look at any of my products, the product is very high quality, has a lot of features built in, they last, and comparatively inexpensive to other things on the market. And that's kind of been my big thing.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the the deck and the SBC. Now, I've seen a few videos on the Team Encoder uh, little board that just easily fits right on the board with no issues whatsoever.
Yep.
And my whole thing is, with my limited experiences with modding, because I've been doing some modding lately, and from what I could tell, based on that, once you put that little box onto your iiRcade, it's a wrap as far as connecting devices. You can connect a mini PC. You can connect the At Games puck to it. You can connect anything you want to it and make
I
it.
don't think that board will do that. Their board will let you load and save programs on the main board and give you USB. So if you
But
want to
by
connect
giving you,
light
but
guns,
by giving you USB and being on the board, doesn't it mean that you can attach stuff that is connectable via USB? So
I
if it's a
think
USB connection,
I could be wrong, but from my understanding is the USB Type A port is for game controllers only. So like
okay,
sending light guns, joysticks, things of that nature. Now there's a USB-C on there. The USB-C lets you connect it to your PC so you can load software to back up, or I don't know if they actually will sideload games, but definitely back up games and so
yeah.
forth. But you can't do anything outside that. That's why my SBC will let you switch over and have other ways to load games as well. But that device really just gives you the ability to use send and light guns. And that's what my control panel did as well. So I've been working with Mystery Encoder and Team Encoder because it's Mystery Encoder is one person, but Team Encoder is the whole group of people who work in that team to make sure that my board, with the way I connect onto it for USB, doesn't
Hmm.
interfere with them. And so if you happen to buy their board, mine, I've already been testing it. My board will work through their board. But if you don't buy their board, which I think you should, it's a good safe keeping thing for your machine. But if you don't buy it, mine will also connect directly on and still work for the USB ports. Um,
So it's just having multiple options, and they're
yeah,
all good options.
right. Like mine will give you the ability to load, RetroPie, Batacera, things of that nature on the board and play games that way. Press a button and go back to the main board. But I'll be able to back up your current library. I will not be able to let you load new games on their board. I could do it on my board. So the Team Encoder board has a lot of features, and they're working all these different things behind the scenes. The software I don't think is ready yet. I don't know if you saw Kong's video when they
Yeah,
were
I
on the
saw
CME.
Kong's video
Right. So,
where he deleted all
yeah,
his games,
yeah.
and now he's only got 2 games on his machine.
No, I think he's got him back. He was able to
I
download him again.
Okay, he was able to somehow download them again. I and that's because that's what I wonder about it. Well, I guess because what the original servers are still up, so you can
Once you
if you
own, when you
once you
purchase, you
own the
can
games,
still get.
you can still download your purchased games. You
Right.
just until the servers are completely down,
Right.
then
And
it's
that's the
going to be up
worry.
to and that's then it's going to be up to
The
the
new people.
community to preserve, or the
Well,
new
that
people,
or
whoever buys.
right. We don't. That's the big concern, and that's Mystery and Team Encoder's issue is when the new people buy it, the licenses most likely are not transferable. I mean, the hardware that iiRcade has and their software will. It's not doesn't necessarily mean that the software license will transfer over. Now, if that doesn't transfer over, will you then be able to still get your games? I don't think they'll be able to go in. Well, they could, but they can. But I don't think they'll go in and remove like a Sega title if they lose, the Sega license, or a Tato Space Invaders and have the Tato license. But going forward, you may not be able to get it. So that's Mystery Team Encoder's issue, and it's a concern because we
Yeah.
really don't know going through this process of selling it and people buying it what stipulations are in with any of the games they have on the machine, like what
But
license terms.
can a company, even if a company buys the assets, isn't there still limits to what they can do as far as with like an existing consumer base, as far as what was done before? Like a company can come in and take it over, but
Right.
if they're not going to continue at all with what was originally being done, aren't there things that put in place where like they shouldn't be able to come in and basically take everybody's games off of their
They
machine?
shouldn't be able to. No, absolutely, they shouldn't be able to. But as we've seen, they they can, and they did. Now the software that
Oh
they
yeah,
yeah,
iiRcade they did
right.
that. That
So we know with Kong,
Jong and Michael did that
yes,
when that exploit was
correct. So
publicly
that's
released.
just the concern. So in not even in theory, in practice, programs can be added and removed from the iiRcade servers, and that's their concern. So it would be very dumb for them to take a game you purchased, like a Space Invaders or a Donut Dodo, and just remove it because they lost the license. I don't think that would happen. But again, we really don't know until we know. Until someone actually buys it, we don't know really what's going on. I mean, in theory, Arcade One Up could buy iiRcade if they got the money. They want to buy them, and then they can just shut it all down, because they don't want it around. But if they got the money, They don't care who buys it. They want the money for the creditors.
And honestly, it would be nice to see someone in the community pick it up, to be honest with you. I mean, it's just one of those things where, you know, you want something like this. You know, there's been a lot of talk lately about, you know, retro game preservation.
Yes.
And the fact that 87%, that's the statistic, of retro games have been lost to time in 2023.
Right.
That percentage of games, they're just by the wayside because nobody owns the rights. The games are just, there's no,
or worse, multiple people own it. Someone owns the voice track, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. One guy's got the music, one guy's got the voice.
One
guy's
got the programming. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And so I'm excited, you know, on another topic because of, you know, that cloud service, AntStream, that's currently on the PC is going to be on Xbox consoles as of tomorrow. And they've got like 1,400 licensed retro inspired games. And they got a really great thing going on. And I'm like, could you imagine if we could put that software on the iiRcade through the use of a single board computer or a Pi or whatever, and we could run those games off, you know, cloud gaming arcade, and you got, you know, all these ways to, you know, to enjoy these titles. I mean, there's so many possibilities.
Right. And that's the other point. There are so many different ways still to play the games. There is. You could buy, even on the original PlayStation, they had, you know, compilations, you know, the Williams compilations with Defender on it and all these games, or the Atari compilations. So there are lots of different ways to play the games. Again, I think pretty much since the first PlayStation, it could have had it on other machines. I really don't remember, but even on the PC, you can play these games. And, you know, I know people talk about piracy a lot, and of course that is always something that's out in the community, but people would be kidding themselves if they didn't think people already have 500 ways from Sunday to play Pac-Man already.
You're right.
They're doing it. So when they come at and they say, well, you're promoting piracy, it's there. I'm supplying equipment, right? If you go to a car, I tell people, you buy a car, right? You can take that car and I could buy it. I can go to work every day back and forth and commute. Or I can take my car, go to a nunnery and run over 10 nuns with the car. I didn't do that. You did that. You got the car. What you do with the car is your own business. I want to be able to give you guys options that you could do what you want with it. And when people say promoting piracy, I'll say it to them again. That's like telling someone who buys bottled water, you know, you're stealing water. No, it's bottled water. You bought it from that guy, or I got it from my kitchen sink. There's no difference. And
yeah, you're right.
These people have been doing it. Emulation has been around mid 80s. I remember emulating, you know, some like Commodore 64, even on my Amiga. You know,
Commodore 64 is one of the most egregious examples of piracy I've ever seen in my life, because the majority of people that had games for the Commodore 64 always had copies. Nobody ever had original officially released software. They always had the pirated, cracked versions, to the point where now when you try to run Commodore 64 games through emulation, you are emulating the pirated copies of the cracked software a lot of times, and you're having the same problems and the same errors. I remember, you know, when I was a kid, that was the family computer that we had. We had a Commodore 64. And again, everybody had the pirated discs. And what I always found fascinating, Glenn, about the Commodore 64 was you could say, today I want to play the game Commando. And you could sit there for 3 hours trying to get Commando to load, and it wouldn't load. But then you could come back to it 3 days later and put it in there and do the load *8,1, and it would boot right up. And I could
humidity,
never,
believe it or not.
I could never understand what it was about. I always thought, it's almost like Commodore 64 discs have a personality. Like they decide when you're going to play them. It's almost like, nope, you want to play Beyond Forbidden Forest? Not today, because guess what? We are not in the mood. We do not feel like it. So you know what? Try again tomorrow. And it literally was like that with Commodore 64. No other system was like that. It was just
I'll tell you
Commodore.
too, when you talk about like pirating discs, England, they had the Timex Sinclair.
Yeah.
They had, that was the big thing there, copying cassettes, copying discs. It is, unfortunately, it is part of the retro gaming, or even just gaming in general. People do that, but also people will purchase it. Like there's a lot of games I would love to purchase, but you can't. Like, Donkey Kong Jr., my very favorite games. I mean, you could buy the ones that Nintendo and those things, but you can't buy the arcade version. You can't. No, Nintendo is not going to release an arcade version of Donkey Kong because there's, again, problems with licensing in there.
They should,
it's just one of those things.
And if they could, they would probably release a 3/4 scale themselves because they see all the money that could be made. See, Nintendo would not need to partner with anybody like Arcade 1-Up.
No.
They could do it themselves. They could just say, we're going to put out the best home arcade. We're going to put out a home arcade version of Donkey Kong, and it'll sell like hotcakes.
Nintendo is quality. Like their little minis they made themselves because they wanted it done right. There's no way in hell they would have sold a license to Arcade 1-Up to build anything for them, because Nintendo is very strict with the quality of stuff they made. The emulation, the hardware, the look and the feel. There's no way in the world Arcade 1-Up would come close to build something Nintendo would be thumbs up on. Even Sega. Sega's a lot looser with it. So obviously let them take, Golden Axe Death Adder. They had that game and a couple other ones.
I think that was tragic that Arcade 1-Up got Death Adder, because Death Adder, that's another scenario where I kind of wish Sega would have did it themselves, because it just, to me, I mean, I don't know. I think it's when you lack quality, and you've proven as a company that you lack quality, that quality is not your vision,
right?
You're gonna have a problem, and they're going, and it just seems to me like they've just gotten worse and worse over time. I don't think that their products are quality products. I think they had a few that you could name on your hand that are quality. Yeah, yep. Star Wars, the Defender Partycade.
Yep.
The
Tron was a good unit. They ripped off my joystick, but and they break. Outside of that, it's a nice looking unit.
It's a nice looking nightlight. It really is. And speaking of your stuff, there's a question here for you, Glenn. Do you have a target spec on the SBC you will be releasing?
Yeah, I mentioned it a couple of times. So it's going to be based on the RK 3566. That's the main chipset. It'll have multiple USB 2, 3 ports, USB-C, HDMI out, audio jack, GPIO ports. The big thing about mine, again, I have big plans for the Viper, and that's the official name. It's GRS Viper SBC. And I want that to become the standard for playing retro games with SBCs, not using a Raspberry Pi, not using a Banana Pi. I want this board to become that standard. And it's also modular. So even though it comes with the RK3566 and so much memory, we're going to be offering different chipsets and different memory configurations. So if you need something even more power, well, just you don't have to buy the whole thing. You just buy the chip for the processor and the memory you need, and clip it in and go. It's too much power. You need more low power for playing LCD games, whatever. You could do that. So we really want this to be positioned as if someone is building an arcade cabinet, if someone's building a small little tiny thing, but to play retro games, with customizing it, have the ability to do that and inexpensive as possible. Like we're shooting still for $39 just for the the SBC. We're still shooting $50 for the kit for the iiRcade, and we've already got it working with Batocera 3.5. I'm sorry, 3.8. So Batocera 3.8, I think is the latest version. We've already got it ported over to that. RetroPie is also running on that. It's a Linux-based board. So I'm partnering with as many people as I can who work on emulators, and I'm partnering with people to build machines. So my hope is to, again, to have that branch out. And when people want to build a pinball table, or someone wants to build a full-size arcade, or a 3/4, 1/6, or a little tiny little NES Glenny Classic, if you want to take it like that. I really want this to be the standard. This way, the emulators, just like anything else, when you're building emulators, if you have a standard platform, people can really milk out that hardware. They can really squeeze out every drop of performance. When you have one that's got to work with all different kinds of things, you kind of lose. You got to lose something somewhere. Someone's going to have a better graphics chip. Someone's going to have a better CPU. Someone's going to have faster memory. But if you have that standard, you know the benchmark you're working in, I think it's going to help the community as a whole.
And not only that, I mean, you're giving options. You're saying whatever you want, basically. You're like, however you want to do it. What kind of games do you want to run off of your iiRcade is what you're basically asking with the Viper. It's not really the limit at that point. It's like you're almost like Willy Wonka at this point. The limit is your imagination. Glenn is the Willy Wonka of the retro community. It's going to be done. You want to play House of the Dead 2? You'll be able to. It's not going to be a problem. You want to play Time Crisis with the correct frame rate? Glenn is going to allow you to be able to do that.
Right, and I'm working closely with as many people as I can, because I'm not an expert on a lot of things. I'm not, but I'm pretty knowledgeable also on a lot of things. But when it comes to emulators and benchmarks and stuff like that, I have all those people lined up and get feedback from them. And that's the other thing that we actually do. People give feedback. We go, that's a good point. And we have the ability to make those type of changes. I've already gotten some feedback from the SBC and the control panel, and we've already made some upgrades. I'm hoping to be able to show off the pretty close to final version of the control panel, because we made some changes to improve it. We're always going to do that. Even when we're manufacturing stuff, we're kind of like Tesla that way. So if something comes in the middle of a production line that's an improvement, we'll shoehorn that fix in there. And then we'll try and reach out to other people to let them know that something is an improvement. Because again, we are there for the community to make sure you guys are enjoying this stuff.
Now, are you setting up, speaking of, there's a lot of talk in the chat about servers. Are you going to set up your own GRS servers for your Viper board?
What I will say is anything is possible. That was my Zhang impersonation. So that is a possibility. We have definitely talked about that, but I'm also completely okay with someone else doing that. Because again, there are a lot of people better than I am at a lot of things. Like if Team Encoder or someone like one of those guys wanted to do that, we would get them anything that they needed to help them out and make that happen. We're here to if anyone has any questions, they want something to do with it, we want to help them along. I think that builds, again, a stronger community. When you have people because not any one person has all the answers. And anyone, like these companies, want you to think that they have all the answers. And here's the product. If you don't like the product, it's your fault, not our fault. We already did all the marketing. That's it. We don't believe in that. We believe in lots of people have great ideas. Like just with another example with the Build-A-Cade. Someone came up with an idea when you hit the coin button to actually hear a coin sound. That was a great idea.
Oh,
in like a few minutes, Gary did it. Bang!
I have a similar thing with the arcade that I have. I don't know if you've ever heard of a small company called Play Minimal, and I have it's a mini Mortal Kombat machine, and it's a replica of the MK1, and it has a little it has a coin door in the middle, and you press it to insert a coin, and it makes that sound. Now, the reason why I say that in relation to what you say is because I got this Mortal Kombat Play Minimal machine late 2019, early 2020. This is 2023. Arcade 1-Up has been doing machines for all this time, and they still haven't gotten it to the point where you can press the coin button in the middle of the machine and have it insert a credit for you. You still have to have the button on the top.
Here's the difference. I'm sure Play Minimal, when they were designing it, were trying to give you the best experience possible. Arcade One Up is not there to give you the best experience possible. They're
Clearly
here to
not.
make money. They're here to make money, give you that quick little fix of nostalgia. I mean, they're nice looking machines. You walk into a room with them all lit up, it looks nice. But they're not here to give you that kind of experience. They're here to make money, and that's the bottom line. And most companies are here to make money. That's why I'm the idiot. I'm not here to make money, and I'm not making the money, but I'm here to make sure people can enjoy what they have. When I kick the bucket, which can happen today, tomorrow, next week, whenever it is, I want people to at least say, you know what, that was someone who tried to give us a better experience, and try to get the companies to do that. And that's been the big fight, is to talk to these companies. Say, listen, small little things you do, like a coin sound, something like that, or real T-molding, or actually controllers that don't break. These are things that,
Yeah.
will help you guys out in the long run. It helps out the consumer because they get their money's worth and they can enjoy it and not have a break within a day or two. And the company, okay, you may spend a little more money now, but you will make it up with people buying more, because word of mouth, there's two kinds of word of mouth. There's good word of mouth and there's bad word of mouth. And when you have quality that's not there, that bad word of mouth gets out there. So that's costing you even more money in lost sales, because people know, oh, if I buy this, I got to replace the joysticks, I got to do this, or I get it half the time that it's damaged. When I get it, I got to send it back. It's a headache. Versus like New Wave Toys. Another prime example. They build awesome little machines. You get them, they're boxed within a box. That costs them money. You take it out of the box. They made little coins. They give all these little details that cost them money. But they're willing to do that because they know when people buy them, people love these things. And then,
it's about the experience. Yeah.
Yep. And see, I don't have to pay John $5 anymore when we say those things. I always had to pay him $5 for that every time I said that. So that's one good thing about the liquidation is I was.
Well, I mean, at this point, you're drinking Happy Juice, so you've taken that over too.
Yeah.
Are your products going to be available on Amazon for the Canadians?
Yes. When we first started, we specifically went to Amazon for a reason. Like we were nobody. No one knew who I was outside, the community, and no one really knew about T-Sticks either. So we figured the best place to go would be selling on Amazon. It's a safe place, right? If people order stuff, Amazon gives them protection, and it costs us a lot more money. I mean, Amazon kills it's so weird. They kill the retailers with all these kind of fees, and they don't. They'll take returns. It could be a box of dirt, which I've gotten lots of boxes of dirt, or I've actually gotten a lot of arcade one-up trackballs and spinners. Again, we eat that. They don't care.
Yeah.
But we did it for a reason, to protect people. We now sell on our site because the fees were outrageous, but we do know that there's people around the world, Canada, England, Australia, that buy a lot of the products. So we absolutely will. The stock will be a lot less. So it may go out of stock a little bit more, just because the warehouse fees that they charge is substantial. And to keep our prices down, which is most important to us, we will do it there, but the quantities will definitely be lower. And we will always be offering discounts on our site. Like if you sign up on our site, your first purchase, you get 20% off on almost anything.
Yeah.
I think the iiRcade right now and the iiRcade Warrior Stick won't be available. That's going to be available soon, but brand new products will not be able to get that coupon code, unfortunately.
Yeah. Ritual Dello makes a great point here. One-Up delivers nostalgia visually on the outside, but internally there's always a deficiency or misleading factor. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That's Arcade One-Up in a nutshell, pretty much. It's just
right.
like,
and that's something a company should not want people to say, that's just how they are. You don't want that. I mean, when you say New Wave Toys, people know of quality. When people are talking about iiRcade,
same thing with Numbskull as well. Numbskull's the same way.
Absolutely. Yep. Numbskull. I have their Pac-Man. And I got it Pi Day, so I think I paid like
I got their Polybius USB charger, and I love it because it's just such a novelty to have something as bizarre as that. The fact that they even were thought to come up with and release something like that, it's so fascinating to me.
I'm dying for the Space Invaders with the mirror effect.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
It's almost the price of an arcade. I think it's like $400. It's not going to be cheap.
Yeah, it's not going to be cheap.
It's going to be beautiful. And that's the key. It's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. And I, and so I see, that you're hard at work right now. You got the iiRcade out there, and your deck, and like, how would you characterize right now your buttons and your joystick that you're using for your deck, in comparison to what's already stock on the iiRcade deck? Because one of the reason I'm asking you this is because one of the things that stands out about iiRcade that we know and we've talked about before is the fact that their buttons and sticks are pretty high quality right out of the box. You don't really need to replace them. You don't really need to. It's not like One Up where you get these mushy buttons and the stick will break after one heavy fighting session. So I want to know, like, what can we expect from your deck as far as buttons and sticks?
What I will say is that the joystick and controllers from lots of machines, a lot of arcade machines, including ones that you may have just mentioned, buy their parts from a place that I happen to work through.
Okay.
So
nice.
that gives you a slight answer there as far as the quality goes. The company, the parent company, where the T-Sticks is like a skunk works off of a much larger arcade manufacturer. Probably one of the largest hardware manufacturers for arcade components. So a lot of companies purchase controllers from that parent company. So I will have to say my quality is as good, better, but definitely not worse.
Well, as long as you're not using the same buttons and sticks that Arcade One Up is using,
no,
I think I don't think anybody will be complaining, because that's really what it boils down to. Again, you're looking at machines that essentially look nice on the outside, but are very deceiving, when it comes to, because the buttons and sticks look okay.
They do.
But when you go to the machine to play it, we all have the same experience. It's very
people need to remember in 2018 when they first came out. They came out with Asteroids, Centipede, Street Fighter, and they were They originally said they were going to be $3.99, but they released them at $2.99.
Yeah,
and they won the Toy Fair for 2018. Toy Fair. These were really designed for your 8 to 10, 12-year-old kids that you went to the store. So, oh my God, I remember playing that in your arcade. I'm going to bring it home and show my kid a game I used to play. It was for your kids. They didn't realize that the nostalgia factor was so strong that it was going to be the parents really going to buy all this stuff. So where they started to fail, in my opinion, was they didn't improve the quality of the buttons and the controllers. I mean, the control panel, for God's sake, the control panel artwork was wiping off within a few minutes of using it. They had to come out with plexi overglass for the control decks. So they're keeping the quality there, but raising the price, again, for the profits. I mean, again, that's company 101 when you care about, again, making the money over the product. I can still sell you the same halfway okay joysticks, same halfway okay buttons. You can put it in your own if you want. We'll sell it to you for $600 now. And now we're making that much more money over the $2.99 in our pockets, which again is great for them. But I think on their way of thinking as well, aside from that really crappy spinner, where there's no excuse for that crappy spinner in the original Asteroids machine, that was bullshit. But outside of that, they know that people are more preferable to their type of controllers, and will probably put in their own kind of controllers. But we all know they've had special edition ones where you did have Sanwa sticks in them. So what they really should simply do is just raise the price a little bit and put in the Sanwa sticks. Or hell,
and
you
that's
had
what
me the whole time. I was giving them stuff. I had a contract working with them to give them almost $1 over cost for everything, joysticks, buttons, everything. And then they for the last minute mysteriously backed out of that deal. But they could be using my controllers the whole time. But they rather say no. They'd rather stick with what they're selling, and the rest is history.
And that's a great point, though, that you make about how, if they were able to do it at all with Sanwa, and how much more could it cost if you're selling these machines on average
thousands
between $500 and $800?
Yep.
It's not really all that big of a deal to throw in higher quality buttons and sticks to
And
make
if they
people
went to
happy.
iiRcade one up, they would have made a deal. You could put on the box real Sanwa buttons, blah blah blah, and they would have got a deal. So they would have been paying what we pay for a Sanwa stick. But again, they could have used mine, which is much better than theirs, and they would have got it almost as cheap as the one they're using right now, but just better. So that just shows they don't care about the quality; they care about the profits. And it's just sad because they haven't realized that by making better quality, it costs a little bit more, but they'll sell a lot more. Therefore, much more profit than the little profit they're making this current way. They just can't get that through their heads.
And it also speaks volumes about the type of product that they're putting out too. When you compare it to something like an iiRcade or even an at games product, or even any custom product that you can get. And I heard somebody say on a stream that it was like that. Oh well, I would love to buy Killer Instinct. I get Killer Instinct on a discount, but it's Arcade 1-Up, so I know I'm going to have to replace the buttons and sticks. So I've got to factor that in. And I know that the speakers are crappy too, so I'm going to have to replace the speakers.
And the monitors. Some people place monitors as well.
And it's like, oh yeah. And by the way, there's an issue with the monitor too, so I'm going to have to replace the monitor. When it comes down to, at that point, what you're replacing so much, you might as well just build it yourself at that point.
And
because everything you're doing is essentially you're practically gutting it.
That is true, and that is for the diehards. The average Joe walking into the place, and that's what's hurting them now too, because it was carried in Best Buy, Walmart. You just walked into these places, they were there. So most people will just put it together and they'll play it. They're not really realizing that it's screen tearing, or the monitor's got too bright, or the controls ain't great. They just want to play it, maybe just have it in the room, just because they like the game. The diehards are the one that do all those
like the Tron cabinet.
Right.
People buy it because they like the way it looks and they want to have it in the room. They don't buy it because they play it, because so many people, they can't say that they actually play the thing because it breaks after a week. So you can't.
I can attest by my Tron stick selling. That's true. So
and the stick breaks after a week. Everybody, I saw so many videos of people complaining about that Tron, and they said the same thing. Yeah, I've had it for a week, and I've played it maybe a handful of times. The stick broke, but I was able to slightly fix it, and guess what? I like the way it looks, so I'm just gonna leave it there as furniture. It's almost just like a
beautiful looking cabinet,
like a decorative art piece. Like
they can do things right. I mean, they use the fluorescent paint on there.
Yeah,
so all the artwork glows up. They have lots of light up control panels on there. It's a beautiful looking cabinet, just like the Star Wars. So they can do it, and its price wasn't astronomical. I thought for what they gave with that one, it was decent. And it's got 2 games on there. The controllers are on the cheap side. I'm not going to lie on that one, but they can do good things. Even the NFL Blitz, a 49-way Hall effect controller in there, which is decent. But people spent $600-700 on it, and then a week later it was $199. I would have been pissed if I went out and bought that day one, and then a week or 2 later I could have bought the same exact cabinet for $149 somewhere.
That's what I try to. I've been trying to figure out, the marketing. The marketing does not make a lot of sense, because when you look at the products that they have and then the sales that they have, it's almost like they're competing against themselves for some reason. Because it's like you put that, if you throw it in Best Buy, or you throw it in a retailer, and it looks like now their main retailer is Best Buy, and that's who they're gonna go through for the foreseeable future. It doesn't really look like I don't see too many new cabinets at Walmart or Target or any of those places.
Carrying it. I would go in once in a while because sometimes they had sales. I got 2 Space Invaders back when they had them for $75. I got one and kept it myself, and I gave one to Richie Knuckles. He was a huge Space Invaders fan. He came to the house He said, I'll be over like 7, 8 o'clock. He showed up like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, and he came over and he brought it home. So, on a sale like that, it's totally worth it. The wood, it's totally, if you can't, like, I'm not a woodworking guy. I couldn't take a lathe and build myself a cabinet out of wood. I wish I could.
Yeah.
Legos, sure. Give me enough Legos, I'll build a cabinet out of Legos. But the other thing too is we talked about At Games before. That's a surprise too, because there was a time At Games was a joke. At Games.
Oh yeah. They were definitely not known for their quality products.
No, they're like their Sega Genesis minis that they made. The sound was horrible. Everyone, they were the joke. And then they were talking about this Led's Ultimate. Everyone was like, what a piece of shit that's going to be. Oh, that's going to be a piece of garbage, blah, blah, blah. They released it, and everyone started to shut up. And they're like, wow. Then they came out with their pinball machines, the Legends Pinball. People are like, wow. And they built this whole other ecosystem out. So, as of like right now, as far as, I know iiRcade is, when I hear anymore, but between iiRcade, Arcade 1-Up, and At Games, overall, if you take the quality versus all the things you could do with it, the At Games ecosystem is the best one. Honestly.
Yeah, 100%. I agree 100%. I don't have a Legends Ultimate, but I do have their Legends Gamer Pro, which is their big deck with the two, and it's fantastic. It's really nice, and I like the, I love the fact that they make their ecosystem so accessible to everybody, and the ability to basically play whatever you want, coin ops, connect it to your computer,
exactly.
Do your consoles. And then the fact that now, they're stepping it up. I mean, acquiring the Rare license is pretty huge.
How about that big tournament event?
I'm all in. I'm excited. And I'm like I mentioned earlier, the idea of Ant Stream coming out and doing their, putting their cloud retro gaming service on Xbox. And that I think that's going to be a game changer. I think that's going to allow more people. It's going to allow more competitive play, and it's going to get more people into retro games. And the idea of what At Games is doing, I think, is amazing. I think Rare is only the beginning. I think we're going to start to see some really big licenses filter on over to that. And once that happens, I think it's going to be the age of the multicade, where people are going to start to realize that, hey, we've got, I got 10 arcade 1-Ups all across the wall. I don't need 10 arcade 1-Ups. All I really need is an At Games, Legends, whatever, and I can play whatever I want, and I don't need to take up all this space. And so I think we're gonna get to that point, because for a lot of people in this community, space is at a premium.
Absolutely. I mean, I have to downsize a little bit, just because I still haven't fixed my basement from the flood. I got to get working on that. But the arcade 1-Ups, I have 18 of them, and I don't play them. I'm gonna be honest, I don't play any of them at all. I like looking at the Star Wars. I like looking at the Tron, those guys. But I also got the Galaxian. I got the Centipede, the 12-in-1, the Asteroids, the Capcom one with Ghouls and Ghosts. I forgot which one that was, but I have a bunch of them. I have Pac-Man. I got Mortal Kombat. I have NBA Jam over there. I don't play them. They now, if I had a room, my basement was done, it was nice to come down and see them all like lit up. It was a good feeling just to walk into a room. You had the black light on, and you saw them on. But but it takes up a lot of space. So I agree with you that the multicade's there, but that multicade does not fit a certain feeling.
Sure.
Like you walk in, you play the multicade. Yeah, you're playing it. It's on an arcade machine. It's great, but it doesn't have that effect of seeing Tempest, Centipede, Asteroids, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. So that is where Arcade 1-Up does shine in that. So they all have their bits, but if you're limited in space, or the wife said, you know what, like Michael B. the Game Genie, I'm surprised his wife has not murdered him. Or Cons or Russ. I don't know how they get murdered.
I've said this 1,000 times before too. You and me are thinking the exact same thing, especially Michael B. I'm like, my God, you're on a whole other level, buddy. Like a whole other level.
He's got his daughter, and he's had a little baby now. And same thing with Cool Toy. I'm going to talk about Cool Toy much anymore because he's got now more into the pinball and the real size machines. But he's got a little one, and he's now has a lot of full size machines and pinball machines. And I don't know how the wives don't murder them. I don't have that problem here
Yeah,
myself,
yeah,
but even I'm just like, it's taking up too much space.
it's taking up too much space. Yeah, I don't get it. And I had, like, I joked on my parody about how on my parody video that I put out with all the AI voices from various people in the community, where I had a little parody skit where a chick basically left her boyfriend because of too many arcade cabinets in the house, and there wasn't enough space. And that's a real problem, Glenn. I mean, that's an issue, and that's why I say with AtGames coming in and providing a good experience, and there's kind of workarounds, I think, for the nostalgia element. And
Right.
I want to say, before I get into that, I want to say thanks to Steps Gaming for the $1.99 super chat. She says, thanks Glenn for all he is doing for iiRcade peeps. Absolutely.
I have to add, it's also Team Encoder as well.
Yes.
I think they are doing a fantastic job for everyone. But again, we both want the same thing. We want the arcade community to blossom, and actually, I think the better days are still to come. Between what Mystery Encoder team is doing and with my control panel and Viper, I think they have a very bright future. So
yeah, it's amazing. All this stuff is just so fascinating. I mean, but to the point I was making earlier, with AtGames, the bit LCD marquee.
Yes. Yep.
Where the marquee can change based on the game you're playing. So even if you're not, so that will give you that nostalgia, because you'll see the marquee if you're playing Moon Patrol, or
Correct.
you're playing Mortal Kombat, or you're playing whatever, and you see that actual marquee when you're up there and you're playing your arcade, you will have that nostalgia through your multicade.
One day we're going to take a step further. So there is now cuttable LCD screens. It's still in the early stage, but it's basically flexible LCD, color LCD, where you can actually cut it to shape, and it works. It's just you cut it to shape, and it works. So my one day dream is to do that to the side and the control panel. So as you start swiping through the games, your arcade side artwork is going to change.
Side artwork will change too. It's game over.
That's when the multicade. That's when the multicade will really finally come first. It's going to be years away, though. I mean, right now they're doing these little sheets, but this big. But literally, you could just it's square, cut into a circle, cut into
so you can
shape.
You'll play Mortal Kombat. You'll have that Mortal
Johnny Cage
Kombat
on the side
marquee, and you'll have Johnny Cage on the side while you're playing. And then when you switch the game, it will change to something else.
And mark my words, it will happen one day. If it's not us doing it, it's going to be somebody. It's when the price comes down to a price point, and then you have someone like you have the big pixel up top and the control panel. It'll all change for the game, and that's when the multicade. You maybe have to buy a couple multicades just so you can have the same room effect. But one day that will be a thing. I'm telling you right now,
it will be a thing.
I've seen the technology, and if as soon as we could do something like that, we are going to do that.
And it'll be amazing. You literally won't need nothing else. And then there's also the whole idea of we're getting into, when we get into virtual reality and augmented reality, where we'll be able, you can go into a virtual room, a virtual arcade, and you have literally every arcade machine known to man that you've ever wanted to play, and they're all there in their authentic glory, the right artwork, the right controls. I mean, we're heading into a future, Glenn, that is going to make the hobby more nostalgic than ever.
I think so. I think so. And I look at a lot of these groups, and I see some of the things people are doing. Building multicades or building from scratch. There's a guy who builds a little town. That guy built a small pinball machine. It's a 1/6 scale pinball, but that was a pain and this guy builds them like all the time. So the hobby, we consider that the retro hobby, these arcade machines, but there's people who are building new cartridges for the Atari 2600, or Intellivision, ColecoVision, people making new mod chips for the Xbox out there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw the newest chip.
Oh, that looks
Oh
sweet.
my God, does that not look incredible?
Yes.
All the sheer amount of options on that new chip. I knew when you mentioned Xbox chip, I knew exactly what you were talking about, because I've modded a few Xboxes for
and it's
friends
not
and
easy.
family.
It's
And I
not
could
easy.
see, and I could see
This
what
will be so easy.
it's going to be. Fantastic. It's going to be almost as simple as the mystery encoder SPC, where you just put it in the little slot and you're good to go. Like it's crazy.
My ultimate really worries. I know people want to keep things stock and original. Unfortunately, because I have a Zaxxon arcade machine back there, and it works. It's been in the flood a few times, but it still works. But eventually, I have two motherboards. I have the motherboard that's in there, and I have one extra motherboard, for parts to fix it. But one day, it is going to fail. So emulation, whether it be software or whether you're using like a Mister to do like a hardware recreation of it, I think ultimately that's going to be where we're going to be going. And these machines are just going to stop working. Whether it happens in 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, I don't know when, but they're not going to work anymore. So this type of community with the people working like Mystery Encoder and just emulate the MAME team, the MAME dev team, people writing emulators, whether it be hardware or software, that's really going to be the salvation, because these machines, as much as we love them, will not be original forever. Even the wood in the Zaxxon eventually will have to be replaced. It's going to break. And that's a sad part of it. But the beauty of it is that it's artwork. I mean, this is like a Picasso. All these games, someone put their passion into the gameplay, the graphics, sound effects, even just Pong. I mean, seriously, it's still a work of art, and it should be preserved, not only for us to play, but for future generations to come back and see where it all came from.
Yeah. Again, it's all about preservation. You want these games to continue to live on for generations to come, and it's sad because it doesn't. I don't have a whole lot of hope for preservation, but then within this kind of community, I see preservation as a better possibility than it was. That's for sure. I mean, we've been we've been seeing how it's basically been up to the fans. It's basically been up to the communities to keep things alive, because companies don't care. They just care about their bottom line. They don't care about preservation. It's about making money in the short term. And then after that, I mean, look at Nintendo. Look at the way they do things. And it's like they're we talk about them as, they're about quality, but that's only up to a point. As far as, when they release their new products, they don't really have that much love for their back catalog when you think about it. When you consider the idea of the NES or the Super Nintendo or whatever, they're looking at you like, okay, yeah, we could put out these mini consoles and you can play these mini consoles and you can hack them. And it's so funny because the mini consoles are essentially just little emulation boxes in and of themselves. They're not even really true original hardware.
Not even close, but they take the time to write the emulator. I mean, the NES Classics are probably the cream of the crop of emulation and the front end. I think after that, it's the TurboGrafx, PC Engine one.
I agree.
And the Sega one is close after that, but I still think the NEC one was better. Then there's the Sony. That was a complete debacle with the PlayStation one. It was just piss poor bad. But I would love to see a mini version of a Saturn. Definitely a Dreamcast. I would love to see those.
Yeah, Sega's talking about that. They would put out an article a few days ago about the possibility of doing a Dreamcast or a Sega Saturn.
Yeah, RGT85 did a whole video,
but it's more complicated than what they suspect because of the hardware.
No, it's really not true, because we're emulating Dreamcast and Saturn now on
Raspberry Pis.
Yeah, so it's not true. It just comes down to it's gonna cost them probably more than they want to spend on a lower end chipset. So eventually those chipsets will come down in price, and they'll probably come out with it. N64. I was never a huge fan. I like 3 games on it. I bought it at launch day.
N64. I'm with you on
Mario
N64, man.
64 is about it.
People can you can take your N64 as far as I'm concerned. I always look at N64 as the console that was a lie. It basically was built on the idea of being something else. It was supposed to be the Ultra
Killer Instinct hardware was a total
Killer
fucking lie.
It was a total lie.
It was a total lie.
Got that. When you look at the Killer Instinct that we got for N64, it was nowhere near what Killer Instinct was. It wasn't.
I remember the arcade.
It wasn't cost effective.
The arcade
for them to do that.
Ultra 64, the logo, the Ultra 64 technology, which was that what you were supposed to get at home. It was a complete sham. And no one ever called them out on it. Yeah. No one ever called them out on it.
Back then, and this is the thing, internet was in its infancy at the time of that, right? Of Killer Instinct. I think wasn't Killer Instinct 93, 94?
Around there.
So it was sort of a, it was an infancy thing at the time. If the internet was what it was today, then Nintendo, the N64 probably never would have came out because it's 100% inferior to what they were promising.
It could have been a little bit better, with just a little more RAM, but it was back then the RAM they needed was expensive. So if they could have put a little more onboard RAM, the textures would have been better, and it would have been better. But companies have to start weighing that price, performance, and cost. And we know that N64 and most consoles sold at a loss. Xbox sold at a loss. PlayStation sold at a loss. Dreamcast sold at a loss because they make it up in software.
Yeah,
that's where they make up their money. But when you're looking at like an Arcade 1-Up or an At Games or iiRcade, not so much. I mean, At Games does have an ecosystem where you can buy games. I never did. I'm not sure how many people actually purchase games off of At Games. I played just the games that were on the machine, or I used coin ops and I brought my own.
People in the chat are talking about Polycade right now.
Right.
And the funny thing about Polycade is the software and the interface for Polycade is completely free. Right. And you can have Polycade. I got Polycade on my computer, and I think Polycade's great. It's got a great interface. You can go on there. You can put all your ROMs and your whatever you have, and it will scrape and have the artwork, and it's a beautiful interface. And you can run it on. I got it running on a little mini PC off to the side. It's pretty neat. But Polycade is expensive as a home arcade, like as a device. If you were going to have a Polycade in your house, it'd be very expensive. But the software is free. So if you want the software, you can get the software and you can run it off of. You have a decent PC, you can run it, and it'd be great. But N64. I hate it because even on modern hardware, N64 is problematic to run. N64 does not. It's amazing to me. You can run PlayStation on a potato, but N64, you could have like the most powerful PC on the planet, and you're going to still have glitches with certain games. It's insane to me.
I think the biggest problem with that is I just think the architecture is not as well known as like the PlayStation. There's so many more people who've been working on that for so many years. They know more the innards. And like the Sega Saturn and the N64, the architecture was kind of difficult. And the Dreamcast, one of my favorite consoles, fortunately, very simple. And it's it's a small console. It's such a shame that Sega, unfortunately, ticked people off with the 32X and the Saturn, the launch. They just lost so much of the community at that point. Because that Dreamcast, even today, I would put it up against so many machines. The gameplay, features. It's just such a good console. And I would love a mini. And the emulation works fairly decent. Like some games like House of the Dead, good example. Plays well, but there's some graphic glitches with the ground. But again, that'll improve. That's the thing. People could constantly improve. And then the chipsets are getting smaller, more inexpensive, and run faster. And the video graphic chips are getting better. So again, the future is still bright. And a lot of people hate software emulation. I never did. I think I know people want 100% accurate, emulation, but sometimes it's okay not to have that as long as you're still having the experience of keeping the game going. As long as you're not doing it professionally. Like now, if you're going for like a high world record,
Yeah.
like Billy Mitchell was doing with Donkey Kong there when he was using or not using Donkey Kong on an emulator.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and Console Fanboy, he's a big fan of the N64. Says N64 has
Mario
wavelengths,
64. Mario 64. I'm there with you, 100%.
And that's the thing. I felt like it had some gems. My favorite game on the N64 was was WCW NWO Revenge. That was my favorite game on the system. I always thought that was a lot of fun. I used to play, but then there were other games that always perplexed me on that system too, like the Castlevania games.
Yeah, they weren't very good.
I never could understand like what the point was with the wonky camera angles and the weird. But then
the one thing I will say, that was really the first, I would say first 3D because PlayStation was out. But that was still new. I mean, I like Warhawk on the original PlayStation. The freaking camera angles drove me nuts. I'm moving the ship, then but when it was Lara Croft, those camera angles kind of worked out pretty good with Lara Croft, with her
Oh yeah, with her crawling action,
all that stuff. That was all good stuff. So
Mike makes a good point here about Nintendo. Nintendo is in no rush right now because they can keep the N64 Mini on the back burner as a nice backup plan when a future console generation isn't going as well. And I think that's a great plan because that's the whole reason why we got the NES Mini in the first place, because the Switch was coming out. And they wanted people to because they were panicking after the failure of the Wii U. So they wanted to get something out there to get fans excited again. And then of course they created their artificial scarcity with their mini consoles, that Nintendo, the kind of stuff Nintendo is known for. And that made it possible for them to, build that FOMO for the Nintendo Switch. So absolutely. Yeah, I agree with this wholeheartedly. I think we will see an N64 Mini at some point, but it's just going to be in between a generation of consoles.
And it did that before. The N64 was running late. That's why the Virtual Boy came out. I mean, some things don't work for them all the time. Although I like the Virtual Boy, I do. But that was a stopgap. They needed something between the Super Nintendo and the N64 was running way late. They gave you the Virtual Boy, and it didn't work out too well for them in that particular time.
Oh, and Messiah says the Polycade, I think, is getting Antstream now too. Yeah, Antstream is gonna. I think Antstream is a great platform. I'm excited. I'm excited about Antstream coming to Xbox. I mean, I don't even know why I'm so excited, because I've got like 50, like all the rest of us. I've got like 10 million ways to play these games.
Exactly.
But it's just the idea of a platform, going and doing it and making it official and doing it in a way where, like, all the games that are on here are officially licensed. You can go online and play these. You can compete. We're gonna have contests and tournaments and challenges and different things. I mean, it just, again, I think it's the community aspect of it that has me so excited, because it's another way to galvanize the retro community. And, and anytime anything like that comes along, it's cause for celebration.
Right.
Like what you and Mystery Encoder are doing to keep the home arcade part of iiRcade alive. And that's pretty cool too. So we're living in good times right now for retro gaming, Glenn. I don't think we have anything really to complain about at this stage.
Not really. These emulators coming out. I mean, Batacera. I'm becoming more and more a fan of Batacera.
Me too. Well. Yeah, Batacera is also one of the most versatile emulation front ends that I've ever seen. Like, it's basically getting ported over to everything. And,
yes.
Pretty soon you're going to be able to run Batacera off of a potato. and it's really going to be that simple. Just connect your potato and you're good to go. I'm excited. All that, and I was enjoying Batacera and all that, and the whole Raspberry Pi phenomenon. But for me, Raspberry Pis kind of ran their course,
right?
Because little mini PCs are getting cheaper and cheaper. So it's like now you just get like a little mini PC that's super tiny, and you can run everything. So you don't really need a Pi, you know.
And that's the thing. Computers, the technology always gets a little bit better, a little bit cheaper. Unfortunately, the past couple of years of the shortages kind of threw a wrench in that. So we're a little bit behind where it probably would be if COVID didn't happen and the supply chain semiconductor whole thing didn't happen. We'd probably be on a Pi 6 by now,
Yeah,
all the performance you would have gotten from that.
Yeah, because
but no worries, you have the Viper coming out soon. We'll get me covered.
The Viper. Now, have you designed your logo for the Viper?
Oh, actually, if I will send you a copy. Actually, we have a Viper thing. I'll send you in Facebook chat right now. I'll send you a logo.
Okay, let me get on Facebook here so I can check this out here. Yeah, I want to see what we're looking at. The let's see.
Here we go. Boom. Just send it to you.
Okay, cool.
And that is our official logo.
Oh wow,
that, right?
That is pretty dope. That's pretty dope. Should I show it?
Yeah, absolutely. Be the first to show the logo. Bring it up.
Let me be the first to show the logo, because this is pretty cool. I like it. I'm excited. Let's see. Chrome tab. Here we go.
There we go. Seeing it first on your show.
There it is. That is the logo for the Viper. Wow.
So that again, this SBC will be a 3566 to start, but the processor and RAM is upgradable. So we're shooting for a $39 price point for that. And then again, it's upgradable. And we're really hoping to make this the new standard for the retro community in gaming. That's the dream and the plan we're going to shoot for.
Very nice. Very nice. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. I think I'm gonna have both the mystery encoder one and yours
Again,
as well.
There's no reason not to get that mystery encoder one. I think it'd be silly for anyone who has an iiRcade legacy or classic cabinet not to have the mystery encoder device, just for the features that it will offer. Again, and at the price point, you'd be silly not to get it.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're, and it's almost like we're at a point where I think this community is getting. It has got so many options that there's no reason why anybody should feel like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to do this, that, or whatever. Right. It's all available to you. Any way you want to do it, any way you want to enjoy your games, there is an option out there, and that's just amazing. I mean, with all the talk about a lot of retro games going away, and that that 87%, I'm sure not feeling it now. I mean, maybe later on, as these machines start to decay and we start to lose the ability to play certain things, maybe that'll change. But I think as long as the community is behind it and is backing it up and is continuing to preserve, I don't think we'll have a problem. Nintendo could have and should have remastered Mario Sunshine.
They probably will at some point, I think. It was a good game.
And Console Fanboy with the $4.99 super chat says, I'm shocked. Mario 64 revolutionized 3D Mario. Pilot Wing 64.
GoldenEye. I did forget about GoldenEye.
GoldenEye. Right. These games are amazing. N64, Dreamcast, Genesis. You know what? I agree. I
Yeah,
think, I'd kind of forgotten about GoldenEye
so did
2
I.
because GoldenEye was just re-released,
Yep.
and there was a lot of negativity surrounding that, and I just kind of,
Yep.
put it out of my brain.
I have to admit, Council Fanboy made a solid point there. He
Yeah.
did make a solid point.
Yeah, he is making a solid point. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, you sometimes you forget about certain titles. Like, whoa, wait a minute, like, and Conker's Bad Fur Day. I enjoyed that game.
Oh God, I forgot about that. I
That's
love
another
that
one I
game.
forgot about. And I
Okay,
used
all
to,
right, Council Fanboy, we're relented here a little bit.
yeah, I don't, because I'm not like, but again, N64, to get the best experience, you still got to play N64 on original hardware because emulating is still hit and miss on N64,
Right.
which I don't understand at this point. N64 should run buttery smooth on everything, but it doesn't, and it's just the facts. But yeah, let's see. Still being shipped. Okay, let's see. You guys are talking in the chat here. Antstream challenges set it apart. I'm excited about Antstream. I can't say enough positive things about Antstream. I've been commenting on their, on their posts whenever they put out like a video or they put out like a social media post, because that Antstream is coming tomorrow for Xbox. It'll be available. They got a $80 lifetime pass you can buy, one time for to have it forever, or it's $30 per year.
Yeah, it's you're better just getting the lifetime.
And I just went with the lifetime. I always do that, Glenn, though. Whenever they offer like anybody offers a lifetime, and I see it, I always go for it because it's always the best option in the long run. Because then you never have to pay for it again.
Right.
It's not $80 versus $30 per year is bad, because then it could always go up.
Yep, it will.
As they get bigger, it'll just go up because they're just going to get more and more games. And that's the other thing. They add new games weekly. So
makes sense.
It's only a matter of time before it goes up. So it's like, no, you get the chance to pay $80 once and you're done, and you don't have to worry about it ever again. Because for me, it's like you buy like a special edition of a game, you're going to spend $80 easily.
Well,
and
that's the
just
thing,
like
even
one
game
title.
Prices. Game prices, you could pay $80 for just like an Xbox game these days. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a chat going before, VHS or Betamax. VHS, obviously.
VHS,
but Laserdisc trumps them both anyway.
Laserdisc was nice, but not everybody could afford Laserdisc back in the day.
No, I actually only have one movie. I bought a Laserdisc player. I only bought it for T2 Judgment Day. It's the only disc I bought.
The only disc I had for on Laserdisc, I had Fist of the North Star.
Oh, nice!
And it was the Japanese version. It wasn't it wasn't in English, but it was the animated movie from 1986. But it was cool,
Yep.
Laserdisc was kind of a novelty.
It was, but DVDs. It's like a record versus a CD. A cheap CD player will trump a cheap record player. But if you have a really good record player, the sound from an LP is going to be much better than a CD. Yeah. Same with the Laserdisc. Laserdisc is analog, and there's a warmth. It's like almost like vacuum tube. There's a warmth from the movie you lose when you went to DVD.
Well, Laserdisc, there's no denying this. Laserdisc had the best audio of all the home video formats, even to this day.
Yep.
Even with Blu-ray and 4K, your audio tracks were still better on Laserdisc because audio was a big deal. Audio files that's what it was with Laserdisc. Yep. That's why I see a lot of today, a lot of fan releases of movies. What they'll do is they'll do like a Blu-ray rip of a movie, and they'll take, like Fist of the North Star, for example. They'll do like a Blu-ray rip of it because it's on Blu-ray now, and then they'll take the audio from the laser disc and sync it to the Blu-ray to give you the best possible audio presentation to go with the best possible video. So it's Laserdisc had some stuff, and it's amazing that they had advantages even over today's technology, which I think is amazing. And I knew very few people back then that had Laserdisc. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Glenn, is how did you get started in all this? Can you give a little bit of a history of how you got started, like going towards building products for the home arcade community? As a matter of fact, can you go back even further and talk about, before you say anything about all that, can you talk about what your earliest arcade memory is?
Earliest arcade memory was at ShopRite. It was a ShopRite Food Mart. We were leaving the store, and there was a breakout machine. That's the first machine I ever saw in my life, was actually breakout. Didn't even see Pong yet, and I was young. I was probably, I don't know, 5 when I saw that, early 70s, and I had no idea about anything. But my first super memory really would be with Space Invaders, and a guy, because I was shooting just in the middle, and guys are like, no, go for the sides, and you knock them off from the sides. And then Space Invaders took all my money. I had $2 bills, threw the Anthony dollars, piggy banks, everything got wiped out with friggin' Space Invaders. But there was something just more special those back then, when you went to like a pizzeria and it was the back room and it was all cigarette smoke and pizza and soda on the floor, on the rug, everything sticky. And you're looking at these huge teenagers, because you're, maybe 7, 8 years old. Because back then we could do that. You left your house and walked into town, and you can't do that today with kids, but back then you did. And you found a quarter or two, or you found some cans. You went to the beer and soda and got a couple of quarters for the cans you just turned in, and you went to the arcade and played Berserk or Asteroids. It was just such an experience, and watching these other people play these games, because the games, I don't say they lost something, but they were just so new then. It's like people hadn't seen these things before, and you hear all these sound effects, and like I said, the cigarette smoke and the lights, and these big, huge teenagers sitting there playing the games, and their girlfriends, who they weren't paying attention to, checking out the girlfriends while they're playing the game. So that was a good thing that Glennie did back then too. But that was back then. And then I talked about this before. So in 2009, unfortunately, very quickly, my wife was diagnosed with cancer and passed away. So it was very quick in 2009. Was like basically we found out New Year's Eve of 2008, and by July 7th, which is just a recent anniversary, she had passed away. My son literally just turned 4 at the time.
So sorry to hear that, Glenn.
I appreciate that. Cancer is a horrible thing. I know a lot of people go through it, and it was just one of those things where it just really came on quicker than anyone expected. And so I was a mess for a while. Now I'm raising my son. I'm working full time, and I heard about this YouTube thing. And I remember I watched. Actually, I saw the irate gamer before I even saw the angry video game nerd, and it was hysterical. I mean, he brought a lot of laughter, and I found the angry video game nerd, they brought me a lot of laughter and brought me out of some very dark places back after my wife had passed. And I said, I got to do some of these things. So I started making some like we all did, taking our cell phone and recording a video and starting out that way. And then I kind of built it up more with my son and doing reviews. And I remember seeing an advertisement on Facebook for this arcade one-up stuff in 2018, and it was Asteroid and Centipede. I'm like, oh shit, those are my favorite games. I gotta buy these games. I gotta get these games. And since I had a YouTube channel, I reached out to Chizcom. At the time, Chizcom was the marketing company for Arcade One Up, and I actually made a video about me asking them for a sample. I mean, this is before we all became shills. We're all shills now, right? But this is before the shilling. And I said, listen, I'd like to have a machine because, again, I wanted the asteroids because I want to try out that spinner because always about controls even back then. And I also asked if I can get Centipede for the trackball. And they're like, oh, really don't do that, blah, blah, blah. I said, listen, I really want to compare the controls. So they finally agreed and they sent it. Now, when they sent these, I kept the box for these because they were pre-built. It's kind of funny. They thought that the end user or the YouTuber wouldn't be able to assemble the machines. And I remember when I got them, I said the whole point is to build it. So we would want to show people how to build it. So sending us a pre-built machine was kind of dumb, but that's what they sent. And I remember I did the asteroids. I put it together. Well, it was already put together. I just took it out of the box and started playing it. I was like, what the fuck is this? Click, click, click. I mean, this has got to be broken and something's wrong with this thing. And I took it apart. I'm like, oh my God, it's a TV channel selector switch. It's like, what the hell? This is horrible. And then the Centipede really wasn't too bad. The trackball actually was halfway decent, so it wasn't really too bad. But a lot of people had a problem with it not working, including John Hancock. And I reached out to him. That's a separate side story, but we took care of him for Arcade 1-Up. That's one of the things that annoyed me. I was taking care of their problems for their clientele, so they wouldn't go crazy in the reviews. But the Tempest spinner was the big thing. So I did that video, and then I was actually contacted because I had, back then I was the community nut job. I had the Arcade 1-Up fan page. I had the At Games fan page. I had this fan page. I had fan pages up the wazoo.
Yeah.
This company reached out to me, said, "Listen, we saw your review and we saw the thing. We might have a way to fix it." I'm like, okay. They said, "We'd like to send you a sample." I'm like, okay. They sent it out. I put it in. I'm like, holy shit, this thing's freaking fantastic. So then we did kind of a crowdfunding initially for it's like 300 or 400 of them, I want to say, but it all got shipped to me. So then I had to take all that, just ship that one at a time, and the post office hated me. They saw me coming. They hated me. I'm coming with this big box of like 50 or 60 things we had to ship out. So that's kind of where it started with T-Sticks. And then we obviously did the trackball. So it was the spinner first and the trackball. And we started selling them through Amazon again because we were new. And we were 2 times in a row the #1 gaming accessory in Amazon. And that was incredible to do that. Nobody, brand new product that was never really out before, became the #1 gaming accessory on Amazon 2 times in a row. One for the spinner 2 times. And they said we did the trackball, and then we started coming up with other things after the fact. But that's kind of where it started. So it was all because of the Arcade 1-Up asteroids, horrible, horrible spinner that kind of started with me working with T-Sticks. And my thing with them was, and what I tried doing with the other companies is to let them know you don't have to sell something of poor quality just to sell it out the door. It doesn't take much to make it better. I mean, to be quite honest, that the spinner was a complete debacle. You could have put anything in there that would have been better than what they put in there. So that just showed you that their team really didn't research the basics of Tempest, because there's no way they would have put that in there otherwise. But that's kind of where it started. And I've gone back to the team a couple of times. They've sent me some stuff. I'm like, this is no good. Like, what do you mean? So this doesn't feel right. It's not turning right, or this control doesn't feel right. I would not send it out unless I was okay with it. And that happened a couple of times with the Star Wars yoke. We had gotten the first one. It was metal, which was great,
Yeah.
but I didn't like certain ways that it worked, and they took it back a couple of times and they fixed it. So I take my hat off to them for putting up with me, because I definitely have some attention with ADHD.
Well, it's a shame. It's a shame they didn't listen to you about the buttons and sticks in the Arcade 1-Ups generally. I mean,
it's no secret. I've definitely tried. I met with them a few times in New York City, and things were said. And obviously, the history we know between me and them is, I'll never deal with them again. I find them to be a company of no conscience or values, in my opinion, and I'm entitled to my opinion. Other people may feel otherwise. I can only go by my dealings with them. I can only
Yeah.
go by all the things I did for them, support I gave them, and to be treated that I was treated by them. I'll never forget that. I'm Italian, I'm German, and I'm a Taurus, so I'm great until you come to the point where you f me over to the point that they did, and I will never offer them any type of assistance at all. And that's fine because you know what? iiRcade, at games, New Wave Toys, they all listen, you know, and I'm not getting any care for any credit for them, but at least they listen and they go, sometimes they go, that's a good idea, and they'll do it. Sometimes they go, we really can't because of this X, Y, and Z. But that's
Yeah.
okay. At least they listen.
They can tell you, hey, we're not going to do this, Glenn, because it's not cost effective. But at
Right,
least they heard you out. At least you
right,
got to make your point.
right.
Yeah.
And at least, 'cause the thing with like, PK and at games, I would be doing a lot more with them, just that they're very busy. So I would love to get my controllers, and PK's reached out to me a few times as well. He really has, and we kind of get set up with one of their guys, but then they get on a project, and it kind of falls on deaf ears for a while, so we fall out. But I'm always willing to work with PK. I think he's a really nice guy. I like his team over at Games. Shiloh, the CEO of New Wave Toys, he's freaking fantastic. I'm hoping one day he'll invite me to California to go in his hot tub with. I'm sure the California girls he has in there all the time. But he's a very nice guy. And John and Michael, it's really unfortunate about iiRcade. I know a lot of people probably didn't know him as well as I did. And regardless of what happened in the end, I really do feel that they were trying their best to make sure that machine was the best that it could be, that they really did try to keep the company going. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out that way. But I definitely think I can read people fairly well. And I really do think that they really were trying and very hopeful that that last minute deal was going to come through, and then nothing would have changed. Our iiRcade would just continue along as normal. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Even Super Impulse, some people remember them. The little tiny arcades. They were great to work with. And My Arcade, make
Yeah.
those. There a lot of companies are really helpful to listen. It's just that some companies really, honestly, don't care. And I think the community really does know that as well. But they still buy it because they want it. But how many times are you going to buy 10 copies of Mortal Kombat and the 15th version of Pac-Man coming out? It's just like you got to do something new. And that's what gets me too, is because there's still so many games that haven't been touched.
Exactly.
Berserk, Scramble,
Exactly.
Pole Position. There's so many games from an early era that I can't imagine the license would be very expensive for these older games. Rally X, another great game.
Speaking of games that haven't been touched, you got Console Fanboy with a $1.99 super chat here. Mario Kart 64,
Yeah,
Banjo
okay,
Kazooie.
he's making his
It goes
point.
on and on. And then
Making
he
his point.
comes back down here with another $1.99 with Ocarina of Time,
Okay,
Merger's
they
Mask,
do.
Zelda,
They
dude.
do.
Yes, yes. I stand corrected and apologize,
You did.
Console
We're both
Fanboy.
apologize.
I
You got us on this one.
apologize.
But that's the thing, though. I remember playing the most Mario 64 on the N64. I bought that game. I really did. Really did love playing that game on that machine. And I did forget about this other one. So he's making a valid point.
Yeah, a valid point, and of course all the Zelda games, and
Well, the big thing was GoldenEye. I'm really surprised you both forgot about that one because GoldenEye 64 was played in colleges like mad.
yeah,
That was the game people were playing.
yes, yeah, definitely, and we're talking about quality now, and I love the fact that you mentioned there's so many titles that they could release because they definitely have the licenses. They
They
could,
do, and Sega. They
and
have
that's the
Sega.
sad part.
They do. They have contact with Sega, and Namco and Capcom. There's a lot of other games that really have, I don't say been forgotten by the test of time, but there's so many licenses other than these newer games they're doing for the 90s that require more horsepower. See, that's the thing.
Yeah,
If you're going to put a
they'd have to change that chip.
exactly. So if you have an older chip, release some of the older games that people want, even like Jungle Hunt. Remember Jungle Hunt? That was a fun game.
I keep asking for Pit Fighter, but nobody listens to me.
I remember Pit Fighter. I have it on my links, my Atari links. So
and how long have people been asking for Qbert? That to me, Qbert seems like a slam dunk. It seems like something that would sell very well.
I think again, Qbert is definitely a game, especially within the movies. They're making another Pixel movie. I'm sure he's going to be in that as well. But Qbert was a very, very fun game. And New Wave Toys did a beautiful job with their small little Qbert. I love that little Qbert. And it would be a very good game. Congo Bongo. I hate that game, but I wouldn't mind seeing it at a 1/4 scale, but it's a hard game.
What would be one game that you would like to see some company release that has not been released that you think would be huge that we haven't seen yet?
There's one game there's two games I would just like to see before I think of that one. I would love to see Virtual Racing, and I'd like to see Starblade, Namco Starblade. Those are just games I just love to play. But as far as what game would really sell, we all know they'll never get them. Any one of the Donkey Kong series would do super well. Berserk,
yeah, but Nintendo would have to do that on their own.
I think Berserk and Frenzy were very, very good games that could do well. Scramble, Super Cobra, could do fairly well. Actually, Qbert, which you mentioned, I think would do very, very well if they did the cabinet right. I mean, they got to make the cabinet look the part, because it's really going to be a one game, maybe one or two games. Qbert Cubes, which wasn't a great game, but it's really you have to sell it as a single, like T2 Judgment Day. You could be selling this as a one-trick pony, but I do think Qbert is a game that could pull it off.
Oh, I do too. I just don't understand why that hasn't been released with all the versions of Pac-Man that have come out. For me, it was synonymous. When I think of classic arcades, I think of Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, Space Invaders, and Qbert. Those are the four that I think of, and I don't understand how Qbert has not been released in a 3/4 scale.
There's another company that people don't remember too well. It was Cinetronics. I think it was called Cinetronics, and they did games like Rip Off, Star Castle, vector games.
Yeah,
just vector games. But Space Hawk, they were really fun games, and no one really does them at all. Now, since Arcade 1-Up did a real nice job with the Star Wars cabinet with Code Mystics, they did a beautiful job with the vectors on the screen. They could pull that off, and it would be really nice to see those type of games. Or even Phoenix, Star Castle, just really, really fun games. A buddy of mine just went, I think it drove 4 hours to pick up a Phoenix cabinet. And Phoenix was, if I'm not mistaken, the first arcade that had a boss, an end-level boss in the game. Those would be great games to see. Vanguard, not a great game, but great music, if you remember that game.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. Console Fanboy says amazing that 1-Up doesn't have Virtua Fighter or Virtua Tennis,
Sega,
or Daytona or Star Wars Trilogy. They have the Sega license. Give us something different.
Yeah,
this is right. what him and I were always talking about with iiRcade. iiRcade, these are like big licenses that iiRcade it never made sense.
They had a Sega deal too.
Yeah, it never made sense to me how they didn't have Dreamcast titles.
Yep.
We always talk about that.
The processor could do it. The processor could do it. But I think obviously with the like the Virtual Tennis, Virtual Fighter, Daytona USA, their current chipset that they have is just not really gonna do it justice. They'd have to upgrade that, and that's an added cost. A fan, and like Big Buck Country's got the fan in there, and you can hear the fan going in the background, which kind of detracts from it a little bit.
Yeah, 1-Up would definitely have to change their chips if they're gonna try to do those games. Although Mystery Encoder has pointed out that there have been some games where their chipset is just fine for certain things, and and it's just a matter of optimizing for certain games, which so it's more about optimization than the chipset itself, really.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm just surprised that there's just certain things that it just seems like it'll never get a release, which is why, again, for me personally, I'm a big
Same.
fan of multicades.
Yep.
Um,
I remember
uh,
Jamie C talk about Satan's Hollow. I remember that game. Good
yeah,
game.
yeah,
With a similar Tron stick. It was just a red version of the version of my stick, I suppose.
your Tron stick.
We have to call it the 1982 moved into video game, sucked into computer stick. We can't use the word Tron.
We can't use the word Tron, but the
Right.
way that it is used. I mean, if anybody who has that cabinet needs that stick, because the one that
It's gonna break.
uses breaks automatically. There's just no, there's so many examples. You watch YouTube videos for days of people with their broken Tron sticks. It's just ridiculous. Let's see. Sega wants a much larger chunk of the pie, as well as the chipset cost.
I'm sure they do.
And that's probably why. Console Fanboy with the $4.99 super chat says, if 1UP continues rehashing Pac-Man, Street Fighter, and MK, they will be done in summer 2024. I'm calling it bankruptcy. September 24th, 2024 announcement.
I mean, the majority of people got those or have those games now. Proper English, have those games.
Well, it's like with NBA Jam, right? How many versions of NBA Jam do we need?
You don't, because people who wanted the game kind of bought the game. There's not that many out there. I guess maybe some, but they're rehashing titles that it should be a couple new titles every year at least, minimum.
I wonder if that has to do with just trying to just milk the license, because you're paying for this license and you want to maintain this license, so you just keep putting out, or you're about to lose the license, so you want to get the last gasp out of it that you can. So that's why
I'm sure
because I can't think of any other reason, because it seems like NBA Jam would be like the last one that I would, put out in a different form factor, especially when so now they got a deluxe coming and a new partycade, and it's just
I think also
who wants that?
Their 1/6 scale. I think people are just done with that. They really should go to their larger cabinets for these re-releases. They shouldn't be re-releasing them in the smaller cabs. Now, me personally, I wouldn't want the larger cabs because it's a space issue.
Exactly.
But I don't know. It just seems like they are they're not really in touch with their user base. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of those things that it's head scratching, because there's so many different titles that they have the licenses to that they could put out, but it's almost like I feel like now they're at a point in their business model where they're afraid to take a risk.
Yep.
That's why we'll never see a Q*bert, and we'll definitely never see a Pit Fighter. But it's kind of just like, for them, Q*bert would be a risk.
And that's funny, because I would say if they're thinking straight, Q*bert would not be a risk. Now, Pit Fighter would be a risk. but I don't think Q*bert would be a risk. Q*bert is too popular a character.
I mean, 1UP even sells little squishy Q*bert.
Yes.
They say, I don't understand why
buy
they
a Q*bert,
iiRcade
1UP, and get a squishy. I mean, there you go. Bang. You get 2 for 1 right there.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm totally baffled, because again, I don't think I'm with you. I don't think Q*bert would be a risk. I think that's one of the things where you want. I mean, and if you want to put out something new, you put out Q*bert, you put out Robotron.
Robotron would do very well.
You put out
Michael B would be happy
TV.
as hell.
You put out Smash TV. These are titles that you would,
and they have existing workings with Williams. I mean,
yeah,
they could get it. Now, you have to pay for the license. Well, stop throwing money away in the Florida football stadium for arcade that no one cares about. or the store that they're closing that apparently no one cared about. So that was just blowing money away. They could put into the licensing.
Yeah, or getting or paying celebrities
Yeah,
to come
that's
out and endorse your arcades when you know
that's a
these
waste.
celebrities don't care about these arcade machines.
Right. See
I mean,
that
I'm gonna be honest. I even think that the Shack Jam was a horrible freaking idea. I don't know what I don't know what they thought, who they were marketing that towards, because ultimately,
they're thinking, a name sells. And to me, that money
yeah,
wasted, kind of what iiRcade did with their boards. They designed these beautiful white boards with all this cool stuff on it, but they lock it in the control panel. No one's going to see. So that was like the shack for them. They took money that didn't need to be put into something no one was allowed to see because there was a warranty seal on it. If you opened it, you were going to void the warranty. I mean, I remember when Mike Tyson had Mike Tyson in one as well. He
yeah.
couldn't have been cheap. He couldn't have been cheap.
Yeah, I don't none of them really. I mean, when you think about it, the idea of this community is so small. You're only going to sell so many cabinets to so many people,
Right.
and so you got to have something to keep having this small community go back to the well. So I've always wondered, like, what makes them think that constantly rehashing a title like Pac-Man or Mortal Kombat or the usual suspects and now NBA Jam, you can only put this out so many times
Right.
in so many different ways before there's literally no money left for those products, because the audience that wants those already has them, has already bought them, has already bought and sold multiple versions of the same cab for a minuscule upgrade. And in some cases, like with Street Fighter, you get rid of a certain cab and you're technically downgrading.
Yep.
It just depends on what you're what so I don't I've never understood the idea of constantly flooding the market with the same titles over and over and
Right.
over again.
Because
It just
unless there's so many improvements that someone will sell their old cabinet, I don't, they'll sell to someone else who buys it and then buys a new one. They're not going to sell them.
This is good here. Thank you, Console Fanboy. Appreciate it. $4.99 super chat. Glen or Zod, why do you guys think One Up had the MVSX in their latest promo ad? It made 0 sense. Thoughts? I know why.
I'm going to let you answer that one because mine would just be a smart remark. So,
Well, yeah.
let you take it.
You can take it after I give mine. I will say I had a conversation with John D, and I think it was on a live stream. I asked John D what cabinets he had in his collection, and one of the cabinets that he had was an MVSX. He admitted it. He admitted that he has an MVSX in his collection. So I think that's why it was there, because John actually has that cabinet.
I just think they forgot it was there. It was just there. Forgot to take it out.
Yeah, but he does have it. So it's and he plays it. So it's, I mean, it actually doesn't surprise me that it was there, to be honest with you. I mean, it's a good cabinet. I love it. It's one of my favorite cabinets of all time, the MVSX. I just love it. I love that it's an officially licensed Neo Geo product. I love that it has that right out of the box it gave you 50 games. But the only thing that it didn't do right was the fact that it doesn't have online. But other than that,
I didn't like those two little coin doors they put on the control panel because
that's a little aesthetic. You put a little electrical tape over it and you never have to see them again. That's the way I looked at it. But as far as like, the big red aesthetic of the Neo Geo that I used to see in Pizza Huts growing up.
And good speakers in that too.
Sound quality was good. God, yeah, sound quality was good. The buttons and sticks are slightly better than what you would get in a One-Up. So I wasn't, so for me, I'm very happy with the MVSX. I honestly don't. And then, of course, with the Hilo X hack that allowed you to you know, add the entire Neo Geo library of games to the cabinet. I mean, it really is a fantastic cabinet. So I never, but yeah, as far as why it was in an ad, I think Glenn, you're probably right. They probably just forgot it was
Yeah,
there
that's what I think.
because
Just my opinion.
they don't pay attention to the actual product. It doesn't really matter. It's
It's the
just about
details they miss out on, and I think that was one
right,
of the
right.
details they missed
Details
out on.
don't matter to them.
Nope.
Profit matters, details do not. It's fine. They all look the same. They're just milking the existing licenses because it's too risky to release new unproven stuff. But is Qbert, for example,
Right.
or Smash TV or Robotron really
Games they know
unproven?
you're going to sell. I mean, Robotron
I
alone
mean,
would sell like hotcakes. Michael B would buy 1,300 of them to put all around his property.
he would have them as like privacy fence. They'd
Yep.
all be
All
Robotron
Robotrons.
cabinets.
Yep. And P Dubs love Qbert doing the same thing, so they would definitely sell.
Yeah, they would definitely sell. I know. I mean, because that's where I'm at with Qbert. I just, I think it would be a slam dunk, and I don't even think they have to. I don't even have to think they don't even think they would need to go all that fancy with it either. They could just release it, old style, or release it as a countercade for God's sake, and you'd probably sell a lot of them. I don't
Right
know.
with that.
I mean, that's another form factor that is, we haven't seen anything new in a while. Make your Dave and Buster's games, but also make a few games to keep the OGs happy.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem that hard.
No.
They will.
There's even more games. There's so many games I can't even think of them all. There was so many, like even the Sega again, Star Trek arcade. I loved that game. Make a sit down version like they did with the Star Wars with that, the captain's chair. It'll sell.
Oh yeah, it would definitely sell. There's a lot of games they could put out that it wouldn't really be a risk. It would be more of just they. I don't know how many. I'd love to get a report of how many. I'd love to get statistic info on how many Pac-Mans that they sell. For them to keep releasing it, they've got to sell very, very well. And it makes me wonder how many people are buying Pac-Man that don't already have Pac-Man.
Right.
This is it's a logical question because they keep releasing it, and you would think they're only going to continue to release it and make new versions of it if it's selling very well. So obviously Mortal Kombat is selling very well, Street Fighter is selling very well. Miss Pac-Man. I mean, so many variants of those particular cabinets. So maybe it's not really the fact that they're afraid to put out something new. It's just that they know what sells, and as long as they can continue to move, the titles that they keep putting out, they're just going to let those,
Perhaps.
be
like
the ones.
I said, where I'm at, no one sells them in the stores anymore. I mean,
Yeah,
Best Buy.
I know. Best Buy's it.
One or two. That's it.
Best Buy's got two. Best Buy's got two. And I got a spoiler alert. They're both NFL Blitz, and they're in the corner.
Yeah. So that's the thing. I mean, a lot of these things, the price point had to be low enough for someone could walk in the store and go, you know what, $300, $400. Yeah, I'm going to take that home and set it up, and we'll play it. The prices got too high. They're hard to get. If they come through mail order and they come damaged in shipping, now you have that whole problem because the wood a lot of times would be messed up. They got better with it, but I've seen a lot of times, actually all the cabinets that I had gotten, some had small, damages here and there, but the box was fine. So the problem wasn't in the shipping. The problem was in manufacturing, and they still packaged it and, out it went. Then you had the ones where you got a machine and you saw the tape and you looked under it. They covered with the vinyl one machine over another machine. So they started reusing the boards, which again makes sense. But I would have peeled off the old decal before I stuck on a new decal versus putting a decal over a decal. But that is what it is.
A decal over a decal over a decal. Less work.
Yep.
Less work. Bonos says they are scared to do Robotron because if it wasn't done properly, then the community would crucify them.
Yeah, I mean the joysticks have to be a quality. You can't use shit joysticks in a game like Robotron. They have to be Sanwas, something good in there. But I do think Robotron could be another game where it could be a solo cabinet. You wouldn't have to put anything else technically on a Robotron. I think Robotron's a strong enough title to sell again on its own.
Yeah, like I would say even bigger than Terminator 2 when it comes to the home arcade community. I think with Robotron, I think but I honestly would like to see some other company put out Robotron, to tell you the truth, and not Arcade 1-Up. So come on, GRS, put out a Robotron cab. Let's get it going, Glenn. We need a quality Robotron cabinet, dude.
We'll have to see. 2024 is not over yet, so we'll see. I have more announcements coming this year, but nothing I can discuss yet. But you never know.
I was gonna, because that's what I was gonna do to kind of wrap this up. I was gonna ask you. I was gonna be like, Glenn, any chance to see GRS entering the 3/4 scale arcade arena?
Why stop there?
That's true. But then again, see, guys,
you got to start small,
right,
and build your base,
like the build-acade.
Yep, you build the quality. You learn manufacturing. You learn parts. Well, we were always good with that, but you learn. You go, and maybe I'll say that. I'll just say there's more announcements still coming from us in 2023.
See, you're 2023 is not over yet. So
no, it's not.
So you guys are
but, I am always willing to work with other companies, but sometimes you got to do things on your own. Sometimes.
Oh, there you go. And Zero Redo, he says, I think you're right, Zod. John D insinuated a zero risk policy. And while it might be making money now, it's killing them long term.
You gotta do some risk to make the money. You can't just make the money by charging $1,000 for a $200 product. It's just not going to be.
It's not even worth $200 when you look at the actual chip that's being used. That's what I always say with them. I'm just like,
Zombie Revenge. That was a good game.
They're using the same chipset they've been using since 2018. So what are we talking about here?
And that's why it depends on the game. There's certain games that'll run fine on that. There are. You just got to pick the right game to showcase it. Like Qbert would run fine. Qbert doesn't require a lot of hardware.
That's what I'm saying. They could do Qbert at cost cutting, and and again, just replace the decal and you're good to go with Qbert. You don't even need. But Qbert is another one where I think you'd have to have a good joystick.
That's awesome.
Oh my goodness!
And that's the big thing too. The Build-A-Cade is the only arcade cabinet any size that's STEM certified to be used for education. So Rotundo, I always say his name wrong. Rotundo. I'm even close. That's the Italian in me. I can't read properly.
Ricciardello.
There we go. They go Ricciardello. There we go. But I'm very happy about that. We're very happy to be STEM certified. And again, once the Viper SBC is available, we're going to start bundling it for schools.
I can't wait.
That's going to be a huge thing. See what they can do with it.
I can't wait for that Viper, man. I'm excited. You got me hyped now for your deck and the Viper. I'm hyped now. It's like, yes.
It's going to be nice. We've been taking our time, hitting all the little spots. Controllers, manufacturing, the SBC, displays perhaps, who knows? But different things we are dibbling in, and then we are just going to go, again, for the people who want the help, like, New Wave Toys, at games, the iiRcade community, something like that. We are going to continue and force to make sure you guys are taken care of.
4x3 displays, Glenn.
I'll tell you though, people can make them. It's just the cost, because it's the tooling to make displays.
Yeah.
Obviously, the widescreen is where the money's at these days. But there are some people still making, like the MVX company.
Oh
They
yeah,
got their
Unico
Unico. Thank you.
their
They're
Phoenix.
making theirs,
Yeah,
and
the
it's
Phoenix
nice.
monitor.
It's nice,
Yeah.
but I've already seen some things I would want to improve on it already. But it's nice. Yeah, actually, it can support that multi-display. Yeah,
Nice.
it could
Nice.
do that.
Okay, well, guys, put your final questions or comments in the chat. Glenn and I are gonna wrap this up. This has been a really fun and informative stream, Glenn. I really appreciate this, man. This has been awesome.
Oh, I'm honored to be on the show. I mean, I feel like I am on Dave Letterman or late night with who does late night on TV now. I don't even know. I'm usually asleep at this time. I'm an old man.
Hey man, it's just great. I'm always excited when especially to get to talk about stuff like this. It's always a lot of fun, and everybody is always so so interesting, and everybody always has a lot of comments and things, and your memory always gets jogged because of all this nostalgia, and then we're always
console fanboy reminding us,
and we're looking at all the opportunities for the future and being optimistic. No more decks after tomorrow.
Yeah,
sorry,
so
sort of late.
The pre-orders for the iiRcade control panel tomorrow is the last day. I'll be talking about it on my show, Kicking Old School, tomorrow.
Okay,
but we'll be doing another 10% above that. So if it's 600, I think it's more than that. But if it's 600, we'll make an additional 60, and those will be available for grabs. And once they're gone, they'll be gone. That'll be it. But with that being said, there are 6,400, give or take, iiRcade owners that still may not have looked at the email. It might be in their spam. If enough of them show interest, we can do another run. But it has to be a couple, 500 or something like that again to do another run. But initially, yeah. So if you're looking to get one, this is your chance. Again, you're going to get 2 high-quality joysticks with 4 8-way gateway powered switchers and mystery encoder. I know, and a few of the people already said they got software that can make it auto switch depending on the game that you have, because we have that software already. You'll get 2 spinners as well for spinner games. You'll get the light up trackball.
It's going to be fantastic.
We have the top now, so the new top is smooth for any type of artwork that want to be added on top. You have 2 external USB ports, 2 internal USB ports, and powered. And you'll have half the hardware required installed already for the iiRcade Viper switching mechanism for $169 right now for that. And that's wood shipping, not shipping, but the taxes are included as well. So we cover the taxes. It's just plus shipping.
So what are you playing right now on iiRcade, Glenn?
I keep going back to Dono Dodo. That's my favorite game.
All right. Well, what are you playing on iiRcade right now that's not an officially released
House of the Dead 2, and
oh wow, great
for the light gun game, and I also been playing
utilizing the Viper.
Using the Viper and my Sinden, yes.
Yep. Awesome.
And I've also been playing a lot of Akari Warriors and Heavy Barrel with my GRS Akari Warriors stick that's sitting in front of it right now as well. I've been testing both of them on there.
Excellent. So you've been able to use. Well, of course, you're able to use those accessories because of your deck. Your deck
right.
is.
But the thing is, I really do hope that Mystery Encoder and his team can get the internal games. There's some games there that could definitely use a spinner. The only one that works right now that Michael was able to do was Space Harrier. That's with the trackball. The spinners would work too, but it's kind of hard to move them and shoot. But there's other games that could absolutely use them. And then any future games, now we'd be happy to work with anyone making new games for the iiRcade ecosystem or the Mystery Encoder ecosystem to work with the control deck.
Yeah, that's going to be the trick. That's going to be the big thing. And I think that's going to be the thing that's really going to make the community blossom even more. The idea of being able to port newer games officially licensed from new developers straight to the machine. I think that's going to be awesome. Console Fanboy wants to know, why do they have the BMX bike in that one-up ad, Glenn and Zod? What's your take on that, Glenn?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they got a thing with Epics and are doing what was that game? California Games. There was a BMX game in there.
You could be right, but I kind of think, console fanboy, I'm going to take a stab at this and say that that's how Scott Bacharach gets to work. I'm just, that's his bike. That's how he gets to work. He bikes to work every day. He's biking to work, telling you, console fanboy, we hear what you want. And he keeps saying that as he's riding to work. He's lying through his teeth, but he's telling you as he's on that BMX bike, we hear what you want. We hear what you want. Yeah, that's it. And Messiah says he got his first. So yeah, I'm impressed. I'm excited, Glenn. This is
I just want
not me
people to be excited. I want the people to really enjoy it and continue with the iiRcade and not have it collecting dust. That will make me happy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's great. It's great. It's great. And again, it's great hardware. And so you should be able to continue to enjoy it and make use out of it. There's no need for it to go to waste and for it to be thrown away like some people. So thank you for all that you've done, Glenn, all that you're doing. You are doing excellent work. And I, for one, couldn't be happier about it.
I appreciate that. But again, it's for everyone out there. My goal is just to make sure people can enjoy their stuff and not break the bank in doing it. And that's what's important to me.
Sounds great. Well, I will be back next time with more late night Q&A. And Glenn, you said you got a show coming up tomorrow?
Yep, tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern time, kicking it old school. It'll just be myself. Steven is on vacation. So I will just be probably doing a talk about, I'm sure I'll figure something out. I always do. It comes to me like right before the show starts. Oh, let's talk about this today.
Awesome. Okay.
But I appreciate coming on the show. Thank you so much for the invite.
Anytime. You're always welcome. It's fantastic. It was a great show. It was a pleasure. And I want to thank everybody in the chat for coming in here today. I feel like it was nice to see the community come in and everybody be so positive. It was nice to see. And this is what it's all about. So good night, everybody. Thank you.
Game on.